to order. We will start with item number, well, we will start with item number 1, which is roll call. Dr. Turetsky,
I'm here.
Dr. Kawaguchi. But Glenn, I
Sorry,
think
here.
Mr. Morodomi, is Mark here? No, and Dr. Wong, I am here. We have quorum. So let's go ahead and start with item number 2, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. And I know that we have Ms. Uni Linden. I was wondering if she was on the call and if she wanted to introduce herself.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the committee. Members of the public, if you would like to participate in public comment, you can click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A? Chair?
Yes, please. Okay, let's go ahead and go on with item number 3, discussion and possible action on our minutes for the February 26, 2021 minutes. Does anyone have any comments about the minutes? No comments? Then can I get a motion to pass the minutes from the February 26, 2021 meeting?
You or me, Glenn? I'll motion to accept the minutes from the February 26, 2021 meeting as presented.
I second that. It's Glenn.
Can we have public comment, please, Madam Moderator?
Thank you. This is the moderator. I'm opening up the Q&A at the request of the committee. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. The instructions are on the screen for your reference.
Hey, good morning, all. This is Board Council. I just wanted to check. I noticed you were calling for a vote at 10:01, and the meeting on the agenda was set to start at 10. So I just wanted to capture if we'd established a quorum of the meeting and taken public comment not on the agenda in that time.
Oh, I'm sorry. So,
Yes.
I
yes.
guess I just wanted to capture, since it's literally 10:01, I just wanted to capture that there had been a start time of 10 a.m.
I believe we started at 10. We just had roll call and then public agenda, public comment for items not on the agenda. Did we
Okay,
start?
and that's probably the main one I wanted to capture, as long as the public comment for items not on the agenda was also starting after 10 a.m. when the meeting was set to start. Then
So, okay. So why don't we go ahead and finish the vote for
Yeah.
item number 3, and then maybe we'll go back to number 2 again and open up public comment
just
for
in case
items
to
not on the
capture
agenda.
people who may not have arrived before the start of the meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
that would be great.
thanks.
All right, so it looks like we don't have any public comment for item number 3, which is the minutes from the February 26, 2021 meeting. So Madam Moderator, if you could close this public comment.
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, we do have a request. Uni Linden. It may be for this one or the previous one. I can unmute microphone at this moment.
Okay, let's find out if, yes, please.
Oh, hi. This is Uni Linden, the the soon soon to join the board, new board member. I just wanted to introduce myself. If it's during public comment for item number 3, I don't intend to make a public comment on that item though.
All right, so if we could go ahead, let's go ahead and finish up with item number 3, and then we'll go back to item number 2, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
So let's, Madam Moderator, if you could close public comment for item number 3 on our agenda. And I believe, thank you. And then let's go ahead and have a vote. Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi. Glenn, I think you were muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
My vote is aye.
Okay, and then Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. We are now going to go back to item number 2 on the agenda, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. Madam Moderator, if you could open up the chat again.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate in public comment, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. And I will go ahead and unmute. Oh, Lyndon, you are muted. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. I was sending that question again. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to, like I said, introduce myself. And yeah, just say good morning. I wanted to sit in on this meeting. I'm very excited to join the board and to work with everyone, and just here to listen and observe. And yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to join everyone on the board. All the people that I've interacted with have been such great interactions with other board members and also board staff. So yeah, thank you, and please continue.
I just wanted to say welcome again, Ms. Linden. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, Uni.
Committee Chair, no additional requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going on to item number 4 on the agenda, discussion and possible action on legislative proposal to amend Business and Professions Code Section 3109, so that we can make a full recommendation to the full board. Does anyone have any comments about this? Or Mark, do you have anything to talk to us about?
Yeah,
This-
hi, Dr. Wong. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This agenda item has been raised by Dr. Turetsky, at least on one, maybe several occasions, and it relates to the issue of optometrists accepting employment from a physician and surgeon. Business and Professions Code 3109 allows an optometrist to accept employment from a physician and surgeon who practices in the specialty of ophthalmology. Based on kind of some preliminary discussions we had with Dr. Turetsky, we're proposing to remove the actual language which says and who practices in the specialty of ophthalmology. The idea being that an optometrist would be able to potentially take employment from any physician and surgeon, not just a physician and surgeon that practices the specialty of ophthalmology. And this would kind of remove some of the limit, if there is one. The other thing that when we were discussing this internally among board staff, there has been some discussion in the past about how the role of independent contractors, employees who might work under a scenario under AB5. I admittedly know very little about this. We have not taken a deep dive into it. Based on some guidance we've gotten from legal counsel, because this was a question that was raised in Sunset Review. The early thinking is that AB5 would not have a significant impact on our oversight of practice, but there might be some scenarios in which this would apply. And so we wanted to perhaps use this agenda item as maybe a starting point for this discussion, not only on 3109, but also just the role of independent contractors, employees, maybe explore the issue a little bit further.
I think that's a great idea.
So as you can see, there is some proposed text for 3109, but it might be a good idea to perhaps explore this issue in full before making a recommendation to the board. But that's certainly up to the committee.
Thanks, Mark. Glenn or Dave, do you have comments about the additional item that Mark just mentioned? Dr. Turetsky.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wong. AB5, there's a carve out. I know that physicians are not impacted by AB5. Optometrists are impacted by AB5, and I believe that the COA is trying to get an exception for that. And if that went through, then it would then regardless of what the board does, there shouldn't be any impact with optometrists. It would still impact opticians. In regards to this specific piece of legislation, I don't see AB5 as being an issue, because if an optometrist was going to work for, say, a sports medicine physician, that physician could always just pay the optometrist on an hourly basis instead of on a per diem, and then there's no issue. There's no problem with AB5 in that case.
Wait, so you're saying that because they're paid on an hourly basis, then they are,
Then they'd be the employees of the physician as opposed to an independent contractor. Or they could be paid a salary, actually, and as long as they're not considered independent contractors, AB5 wouldn't have any issue with that.
right? I mean, I know that there's some ophthalmologists that could be hiring optometrists as independent contractors because they're stating the services are different from what they provide. So I think it might be a good idea to clarify to optometrists in general for us to help clarify this. I don't know. I mean, I've had people ask me questions as to, you know, this.
I mean, my understanding, and we have somebody that is skilled in the law on this call. That would be you, Rebecca. My understanding is that the physicians are not impacted. The optometrists would be. So, you know, again, if the optometrist is hired as an independent contractor, I don't know how that would apply. That's interesting, because the physician is excluded, the optometrist isn't. But I think that's only for an optometrist hiring an optometrist. What say you, legal?
Well, you know, maybe not as much as we could go into here, because ultimately it might impact licensees, but this doesn't impact the way the board, the job of the board to license the profession. So it might impact others, but it doesn't impact the board's role.
Okay, so I mean, the board, yeah, because the board's not going to be doing anything as far as enforcement of AB5.
Right.
That's going to be the labor board, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good. So in regards to this specific legislation with 3109, and Lillian, you can speak really well to this because you're at the school. Since the time I graduated, when we had, you know, we had to light a candle in the projector just to project something on the wall. Optometrists are doing a whole lot more. And is it your thought, your opinion as an instructor at Cal that we can do a whole lot of things with medical doctors in general and not just ophthalmologists to improve the lives of patients?
Yes, I think being able to be employed by any MD so that we can provide services would be a benefit.
Yeah, it just seems like we're throwing up a big roadblock for no reason. And it's my understanding, and I could be incorrect on this, but that little blurb, that practicing as an ophthalmologist, I believe that was added into the statute somewhere around 25 or 30 years ago, Because way back when, an optometrist could work for any physician. And then there was something added into the statute where it had to be an ophthalmologist and not any physician. So I'm not sure where it came from or why it came from, but I think it's time that that we accepted the fact that optometrists can do a whole lot more than just selling glasses, and we have a value that's being unused at this point.
It's Glenn. So I agree with that. I don't see any specific reason why it needs to be the way that it is. I do agree that there's benefits to an optometrist being able to be employed by any physician. It doesn't have a negative impact, in my opinion, on risk to consumers, since ultimately optometrists are still responsible for providing the care that they're licensed for. And I would not suggest complicating it, attaching it to other things if we don't have to. There's always that tendency where one thing can possibly touch something else. It's always going to be the case, but I want to try to keep this one simple. So that raises my next question around legislative action. If we have an idea of something that may be coming that this can be attached to, if that's been researched at all yet, or would our true next step be to bring this to the full board?
So you want to find another action to attach this to before we bring it to the full board?
No, I just am curious if we've already done any kind of work. So, Mark, if you've done any thoughts around whether or not there's an attachment to other legislation that might be coming or pending, then
Well,
it would make sense to go with this.
Right, Dr. Kawaguchi, I think, obviously the next step would be to report this recommendation to the full board on May 21st. And then we could potentially add it into our sunset review or potentially find an author for another bill. So there are some legislative options that we can do with this.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And then do we need to talk any more about AB5? I know Rebecca answered the question. So we're good. Okay, so I guess the recommendation at this point is to bring this proposal to the full board at our May 21 meeting. And let's go on to item number 5.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Madam Moderator, if you could open it for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. At the request of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. The instructions are on the screen for your reference.
Committee members, actually, I believe that we need a motion and a second.
Okay, so let's stop public comment for a moment. And could I have a motion to bring this item up for bring this item to the full board at the May 21 meeting?
I am unmuted. There we go. It's Dave. I will make the motion to bring this item up to the full board at our next meeting.
And could I get a second?
I second.
And let's have a vote. Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
and Dr. Wong, aye. Did I need to have public comment before we took our vote? Madam Moderator, if you could open up.
So I think, okay, so I think you probably could go ahead and finish calling for public comment. And I just wanted to clarify, because I heard the motion to be that you move to bring it to the board. I just want to clarify, are you recommending a support position for the board, or just to bring this issue to the board?
Oh, sorry. So if I could modify my motion, could we have a motion to bring this to the full board in support of
Okay, great.
of the change?
That'll help at the board meeting too. It'll remove a lot of work at that stage.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I will make said motion or second said motion wherever we are on this. But yes, I support that motion.
Dr. Kawaguchi, will you second that supported motion?
Wait, where are we? Sorry.
We
Okay,
are-
so I think Dave made the original motion. So Dave, you're saying that you accept the friendly
I
amendment?
accept the friendly amendment to support, to issue our support for this legislation or at the next board meeting.
Okay, and I do maintain my second on that.
And
with
Madam
the
Moderator,
amendment.
thank you. And Madam Moderator, if you could open up for public comment at this point, please. Sorry, guys.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, the instructions are on your screen. Just click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And at this moment, we will have a vote now. Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Dr. Wong, aye, motion passes. So now we can move on to item number 5, discussion of possible action on all the upcoming legislation. Mark, do you want to talk to us about all these different bills?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wong. So I think just for housekeeping purposes, probably the best option is to review each bill, and I'll give you just a quick overview and some comments. Obviously, you've all read the materials, so you can see the full comments. But maybe we can just go through each one, and then if the committee wants to recommend a position to the full board, we can take a motion and a vote on each one, and then that way, just for the purposes of tracking all of these things, that way we'll go through each one and do it accordingly, if that's okay with you, Dr. Wong?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. So the 2021 legislative session is underway, as we all know. There are a few upcoming legislative deadlines of note. It's kind of important to note that, you know, a lot of these bills, some of them are a little bit more developed, a lot of them are in preliminary form, and a lot of stuff generally doesn't get done, in my experience, until after the legislature passes the budget, which will be probably June, and that's when the real action seems to happen. But obviously things can change. Some of these bills may become 2-year bills, since we are in year 1 of a 2-year legislative cycle. We don't have a lot of indications of what those bills are. The bills that are set out below are bills that directly relate to the practice of optometry or opticianry, or may have a direct effect on board operations. In looking at all the bills that have come up, we've tried to kind of keep our focus on things that would really affect our operations in one way or another, or affect the issue of consumer protection. So with that in mind, why don't we start with Assembly Bill 29. This bill is currently in the Appropriations Committee with no hearing date set. We do have an opposed unless amended position recommended on this. This bill is, it's a bill that gets put into play every year. It never seems to pass because of various issues that the various, you know, committees or bureaus or agencies will have. But the short description is that it would require any materials that are going to be included as part of a meeting agenda. Those materials would need to be posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting. Now with us, we do make every effort to get our materials posted online. Obviously we have to have our agenda posted 10 days prior to the meeting, which we comply with. And then we also try very hard to have meeting materials posted generally about 10 days to a week prior to the public meeting. But right now, as it is, we have a recommended opposed unless amended position because we get a lot of stuff at the last minute, especially during legislative season, such as legislative analysis or changes. We will often get public comments in advance. There's just some things that will come up at the last minute that we need to be able to sort of have the flexibility to put it online. You know, we may have to have it online a couple of days or even one day prior to the meeting. The other thing is we do have external actors here like the internet team that we rely on for posting, and they request all our documents be sent to them 10 days prior in advance so they can do all the ADA requirements and some of the other requirements. So we are suggesting the post position, but with perhaps a friendly amendment to maybe allow an exception for legislative materials that are listed on the posted agenda. Like, for example, we have AB 29 listed on here. This amendment would allow us some flexibility with posting legislative materials. And also, even though we don't normally post them, but any closed session materials, which is just sort of a technical thing. These are amendments that are consistent with what other boards seem to be asking for. So it would seem logical for us to ask for such a thing. And that's all I have on 29.
Dr. Chartsky, Dr. Kawaguchi, do you have comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. So I agree with that. So I think that we do a good job ensuring that we have materials posted in a timely manner. I think the way that the current legislation is written, it would tie our hands, and I think it would have a negative impact with not just legislative things, but also sometimes we put public comment that we receive very late, and it would end up precluding us from being able to move forward with that. So instead of it being where we have, as a board, the material as soon as we can see it, we would end up having to wait, I think, for the actual meeting for it to be presented to us, which doesn't make it better. It actually would make it worse. I do agree with the general concept, and I think that we as a board have always wanted to make sure that staff was timely in presenting information to us prior to board meetings so we could have a active discussion about the material. But again, I think that we're all mindful of that, and we don't allow things, whether it be for us or for public to have access to in a timely manner. So I agree with the staff recommendation of oppose unless amended. And that's what I would recommend that we recommend to the full board as well.
Dr. Chartsky, any comments?
No comments.
All right. So if I could have a motion to introduce to the full board, AB 29 with staff recommendation as opposed.
So I'll move to bring back to the full board Assembly Bill 29 as an oppose unless amended recommendation. I'll stop there.
Okay, it's Dave. I'll second.
Okay. Madam Moderator, if you could open up for public comment, please.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right. If I can, let's go ahead and have a vote. Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. Mark, if you want to tell us about Assembly Bill 407.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is, I'm going to, unfortunately, acquired blepharoptosis is a little off my comfort range. So let me just quickly describe what the bill is in current form, what it's offering. The bill would authorize an optometrist who is certified to use therapeutic pharmaceutical agents to diagnose and treat acquired, and the bill was amended just recently, so I apologize. The current text is not listed below, but I'll read it off, and obviously you have the links to the bill. The bill would additionally authorize an optometrist who is certified to use therapeutic pharmaceutical agents to diagnose and treat acquired blepharoptosis, ametropia, and presbyopia through medical treatments. It beyond that little change, it does not have, the bill itself, as you can see, does not have a tremendous amount of detail how that would work. We are recommending a lock position on this bill right now. The bill is sponsored by COA. We don't have any enforcement data that would warrant an opposed position. So I think this is one we want to watch very closely and kind of continue to monitor its developments. I don't know if we have anyone from COA with us, but they might be able to elaborate a little bit further.
So, Dr. Kawaguchi, Dr. Taretsky, do you have any comments?
I have some questions. I'm not sure, Lillian, maybe you can answer it. So for ptosis,
Mhm.
I didn't know, I don't, is,
There's
with,
there's
within
a
our-
well there's a new medication out for for treatment of for acquired ptosis, but I don't know if Christine Schultz is on the call. Should we open up for public comment first to see what COA has to say about this? Or do we need to wait until after we have a motion?
can we talk it through first?
Sure. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So I guess my question is are they proposing legislation because it's clear that an optometrist who's TPA certified cannot use these treatments?
That was
didn't
my
know
that was my question to COA.
I didn't know that our current regulations were that restrictive that it would preclude us from using new pharmaceutical agents to treat things within the realm that the regulations already exist.
I wasn't either. So I think if COA is on the call, that would be a good question to ask them. The bill also is talking not about just blepharoptosis, but ametropia and presbyopia through medical treatments. I was a little bit confused about that. I was assuming they were referring me to myopia control, but we already do myopia control through pharmaceuticals. So I wanted to see what COA had if they could clarify.
Well, so my question I think would be for maybe to have legal counsel offer us an opinion as a board, because if our feeling as a board is there's already an ability, I'm assuming that there's not. I'm assuming that there's an interpretation currently that there's not an ability, or we need a clarification that there's an ability to use these newer treatments. But I personally have never read into our current regulations that it's that specific. So I don't know that we should take a position currently, because I think that I have definitely more questions about why the legislation is in play. And if it's confirmed that we need to change our laws and regulations, then I get it. But if there's not a need for us to change it, and it is subject to potential evaluation, that's totally different. So Rebecca, did you have a thought on that?
So I would refer you to your board packet, your materials, where staff has prepared the memo for this item, and staff has a note under this bill that says comments. the bill is sponsored by COA. The board does not have enforcement data. So this is kind of a question for your enforcement staff as to how they're approaching these things. And your memo says the board does not have enforcement data in opposition to this expansion of scope. As authority would be granted under the current licensing scheme, staff projects little to no change in the process of licensing applications. In the crafting of, so basically they're talking about the real world impacts. And and you can also see the staff recommended position is in line with, very much in line with what you're talking about. It was just a watch position. And then at the last paragraph of that, or the last sentence of that, talks about how there could be implementing regs that could include specific materials.
I believe Dr. Turetsky also would like to make a comment.
Based on which have occurred in the past, a lot of times something like this, which seems pretty innocuous, and it would seem like there should be no reason that we can't use this medication. I know that it's been used as part of a bill to help ODs expand scope in other areas. So I don't know the exact purpose of this, but this might be a starting negotiation point that the COA has worked with to expand optometric practice in other areas. So that's just my guess on this. It could just be the start of an expansion bill, other than just this one specific medication.
Yeah, Dr. Turetsky, I think in our conversations with COA, that's a pretty accurate thing. They are looking for ways to partner with with ophthalmologists to allow optometrists to acquire additional scope of practice. So this probably is indeed a starting point for that.
Okay.
Well,
Any more?
With that in mind, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion.
Please.
I would motion that we that the committee accept Assembly Bill 407 and propose that the full board take it up and accept it at the upcoming meeting.
To interject, usually the positions that the board can take on legislation are support, watch, or oppose unless amended. So by accept, I just want to clarify what you're recommending.
Accept as in support.
Oh, okay.
We support this motion, or we support this bill.
I second that.
Okay. Madam Moderator, if you could open up the chat for public comment, please.
Yes, this is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So if we could go ahead and have our vote. Dr. Turetsky.
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi.
Aye.
Dr. Wong. Aye. Motion passes. Let's go on and move on to item number 5C. Mark, please.
Okay. Assembly Bill 691 by Assemblymember Chow. This bill deals with optometrists ordering clinical laboratory tests for or administering vaccinations for the COVID-19 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This was an urgency bill, so it would take effect upon the governor's signing. The bill would expand the authorization for a TPA certified optometrist to perform procedures, include a clinical laboratory test or examination under the CLIA necessary to detect the presence of SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19. In addition, the bill would also place our let me just skip to the comments here. This bill does a couple of things. It has 4 practical effects. It would put our AB 443 regulatory package which is the bill that was signed into law a couple of years ago, and we are currently doing regulations for that allows optometrists to administer immunizations and such. We just finished the 45-day comment period. This bill would effectively put that into law because the bill does set out our regulations, including the form that optometrists are required to fill out and send to the board, the authorization to administer shots. So this bill would put that into law. It would also obviously allow optometrists to order tests for COVID-19 and for them to administer a vaccine, which in effect would switch currently the California Department of Public Health is the agency that is administering that right now. It would switch that to the board for that registration to administer the COVID-19 vaccination. The bill does not address some of the other COVID-19 issues like distribution, follow-up care, et cetera, et cetera. We have identified an impact that this bill would have. We do believe that there would be some revenue, probably close to $35,000 in initial revenue in the first year for the board. Obviously, new optometry school graduates would potentially take advantage because they are receiving this training, I believe. So that would be new applications, maybe about 300 a year that we receive. So this would be a little bit of we would get a little bit of a boost to our revenues from this because it does have a $50 certification fee, but there would be a pretty severe impact on our workload. Right now, we're projecting that each application would take probably about 45 minutes to review and approve by our AGPA licensing analyst. And right now we only have one of those on staff right now. So we are anticipating kind of a heavier workload impact from this bill. We are recommending a support position at this time. But one amendment that we might want to explore a little bit further, perhaps with the author's office, to find out if there's any way we could potentially possibly get authorization for more staff to handle this, which is something that we would probably do through the budget change process, but this is something that we could certainly look into.
Comments, Dr. Turetsky, comments, Dr. Kawaguchi? Dr. Turetsky, please.
I am, where did it go? There we go. In the summary that you prepared for us, Mark, it says that the bill would allow optometrists to order tests for COVID-19 and allow a vaccine to be administered. Does that mean that the bill would allow optometrists to test for COVID-19 and allow the administer the vaccine? Because the way this is written, I'm looking at the summary, not the actual legislation. The summary just says that we can order it and we can allow a vaccine to be administered. It doesn't say that an optometrist can actually do it.
It is my understanding that you would be able to order the test and interpret the results and then administer the COVID vaccine.
But would we be able to perform the test, or could we just say, okay, go to Walgreens and get this test done and have them send the results to me?
I believe you would be able to order the test.
So we can't do it ourselves. We can't do the nasal swab ourselves.
I'm not 100% clear on that from the bill text, but it's my understanding that optometrists will be able to do that test and do it. But it's my understanding, and forgive me for not understanding it as clearly as maybe I should, but it's my understanding there's sort of two types of COVID tests. There's there's sort of the more basic test that I think anybody can do. They can buy a swab kit from CVS pharmacy and do it and get their results. And then there's the more comprehensive test that's usually done by physicians and surgeons. And I believe that this bill only allows optometrists to do the more basic testing.
As far as I know, there's There's an antigen test, which is the 15-minute test, which is with a nasal swab. And then there's a PCR test, preliminary chain reaction, and that's the same thing with a nasal swab, but that's a 6 to 8 hour test. And that's the one that's the gold standard and the most accurate.
So I've clicked, sorry to interrupt, I've clicked on the bill itself, and it appears to me that it would allow optometrists to perform the test.
That's-
Now granted, this was a quick skim by clicking the link, but it talks about, let's see, at the bottom, it says, this is an urgency statute necessary, blah, 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 and then it says to prevent the spread by, sorry, I skipped the part I was trying to read out loud here. In order to protect, ensuring qualified optometrists can assist to prevent the spread of COVID-19 by administering vaccinations and testing. There's also portions in the language itself that, for example, sub D18, I think it is, where it says a clinical laboratory test. So like I said, I'm kind of skimming here, but the impression I'm getting is that it would allow the administration of the test itself.
I'm just not, that's right. I'm just not clear on subsection 18 where it talks about waived under the CLIA. Does the antigen and the PCR fall under both of those under 18, or does only the antigen? Or that's where I don't know enough about how the law works or anything like that.
Yeah, that might be something to get a little more information on then.
the report.
If that's a turning point, by the way, if that changes the board's determination on or the committee's determination of the bill, like.
Or maybe it's being deliberately vague so that it can be either antigen or PCR. I mean, most private offices won't have the capabilities to do a PCR test in-house. But if they did, or if they have a lab nearby, then they could do either antigen or PCR. So I guess we just need to clarify if it's including both or.
Well, that's a good point, because if, for example, the committee's impression is, oh, we support this bill in general, but maybe it lacks a little clarity on that point, then if that's something that's important and you say, oh, we want to support it, but we want this amendment to clarify that both of these tests are, and maybe they already are, I'm not sure, but if that doesn't matter, if in the end you would support this bill anyway, then just consider that. But if that's a turning point for you, then we can sort of go delve into that issue a little more deeply.
I was thinking the opposite in my mind. I was looking at the bill, and in some ways, I think it might be overly specific. I realize that it's trying to push through quickly to serve a specific pandemic. However, we've had SARS viruses in the past, and this bill is naming a specific SARS virus that may be just isolated to this one. Our next pandemic may be SARS-CoV-3, as an example. So that was a different question in my mind is, I realize it's an emergency bill, but at the same time, if this is going to happen again, but it could be with a different virus, is there a possibility that there could be broadening to the bill? The second thing is when we do bring it back to the full board, I'd like for us as a committee to be more specific about the amendments that we're suggesting, or to have staff come back with a little bit more specificity to what we need. What does the staff need to administer this? As far as being specific about, attaching revenue for administrative purposes, things like that. Because in general, I do agree with the support, and I do agree with amendments. But before we bring it back to the full board, I would just want to make sure that we have a little more substance to our suggestions, so that we can be real specific at the next board meeting, the next full board meeting.
We will definitely do that, Dr. Kawaguchi.
Glenn, it's a really good point with the pandemics because this ain't going to be the first or the last.
So do we want to make a motion at this time?
I would move that we bring Assembly Bill 691 back to the full board with a recommendation of support with amendments.
Can I get a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. Madam Moderator, if you could open for public comment.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the committee. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And if I could have a vote, Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. Okay, let's move on to item 5D. Mark, if you want to fill us in.
Yeah, thank you. Assembly Bill 1236 by Assemblymember Ting. This bill has to deal with data collection for licensees. Current law allows specific boards under DCA to collect and report certain demographic information of their licensees. The bill would allow all boards essentially to collect that information. They would be able to post it on internet websites that they maintain. And it also would specify that licensees and registrants are not required to provide the information. We're recommending a watch position on this bill. I think it'd be useful, and especially in the areas in, workforce development and highlighting trends and things like that. But I think at this point, we would recommend a watch position.
Dr. Turetsky, Dr. Kawaguchi, comments? If I could get,
If it's voluntary reporting, how useful really is the data that you collect? I don't know. Sure, watch sounds good to me.
if I could get a motion.
I will motion to make a recommendation to the full board regarding Assembly Bill 1236 that we should accept a watch position on the bill.
Second.
Madam Moderator, if you could open up the chat for a comment, please.
This is the moderator. Members of the public, I've opened up the Q&A. Instructions are on the screen. Just click on the Q&A icon and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Let's go ahead and have a vote. Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. And let's go ahead and move on now to item number 5F. Mark, if you could tell us about.
How about E?
Oh, I'm sorry, 5E. Thank you.
5E, okay, Assembly Bill 1534 by the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions. This bill, as it is it just basically has text to require our board to notify the committees when we have completed adoption of the mobile optometric clinic, charity care clinic bill 8896, which we are very much in the process of doing, and the full board will take up in May. We believe this will be our sunset bill for 2021. So as it stands right now, it's just essentially a placeholder, but we would recommend support of this bill.
Dr. Turetsky.
Mark, is that in reading this, is 1534, does it have cleanup language in it?
No, at this time, it's just it's just very basic what it requires. The only thing that it currently requires is that we need to notify the committees when we have completed adoption of the AB 896 regulations. That's all the changes that it has at this point. The expectation is that this bill will be amended, during the process over the next few months as the board sunset bill.
Okay.
So Mark, my question is, do we need to take a position on this? Isn't this ongoing work?
It it it's it would be helpful to take it's purely up to the committee. I don't think we would be in opposition to just notifying the committee itself when we've completed adoption of the 896 regulations. But again, it's just a recommendation to the full board, and there's a decent chance that the bill will be amended in the next. It may be amended in the next few weeks before the full board anyway. Again, it's very much in placeholder form. So it's up to the committee, but I see no harm in taking a support position, but it's up to you guys.
I just don't. I don't feel like we need to take. I don't know. It just feels odd that we're taking any position, because sometimes we don't have a position. It's just something that, you're just letting us know what's going on because we're continuing to move forward. So I mean, I'm not opposed to having. I mean, we obviously support it, but I don't know that we have to take a position. I'm just questioning that part. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, just for optics' sakes, would it be good just to officially state that we support it?
I think that's probably a good assessment. Yeah, it might be good for optics, but again, it's probably going to evolve and change in the next few months, and certainly the full board we will have ample opportunities to weigh in going forward. But I don't think a support position hurts. Yeah.
So based on staff's recommendation, I will say that we should recommend support to AB 1534 and pass that recommendation along to the full board.
I'll second that.
Madam Moderator, if you could open up the chat for comment, please.
Yes, this is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Just click on the Q&A icon and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. And I'm sorry, let's go ahead and have a vote. Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. Now we can move on to item number 5F. Please, Mark.
Okay, Senate Bill 509 by Senator Wilk has to do with optometry, optometrists being issued temporary licenses during the COVID-19 pandemic. As currently written, which is an important thing to remember, and I'll explain why in just a minute. As currently written, the bill would establish provisions for temporary licensure. It would require the board to issue a temporary license to practice optometry to anyone who applies and is eligible under existing law, but is unable to immediately take the required exams for licensure under our act. It would establish an application fee. It would require the applicant to satisfy additional conditions for temporary license. It would require that the temporary licensee practice under the supervision of a supervising optometrist and would define those terms. The bill as currently written would require that the temporary license expire 1 year from date of issuance unless extended. And obviously the board would be responsible for investigating and enforcing, any provisions of the temporary license or anything that normal optometrists would be subject to. We're not recommending a position at this time, and the reason why is we understand, you'll note that in the comments section, which is fairly detailed, there's a number of different issues that have been raised by the committee, by staff, by various folks, and it's our understanding that the bill is going to be amended that will address these concerns. But this week, those amendments are not in print yet, and we don't know what they're going to look like just yet until they're actually in print. So that's going to kind of change how the bill looks. So at this point, we're kind of just recommending, either we watch it or no position be taken at all, and that perhaps the full board, can actually take a more informed position once we have the amendments in print. As currently written, we are anticipating a fairly significant impact to our workload. As we all know, that our licensing unit is only has one analyst in it, and three positions are vacant at this point. We also have one OT in the licensing unit. This bill would create additional workload just because there would be people that would likely take advantage of the temporary license. Not only would that create licensing workload, but there would be potential increase in analyst workload for enforcement because obviously they'll have to look at the various aspects of the temporary licensure, such as the supervision, if they're being properly supervised, what that looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So those are kind of steps, thoughts, and concerns at this time with that bill.
Comments, Dr. Strutsky or Kawaguchi? Dr. Strutsky.
I'm based on what you said, Mark, that there's going to be a lot more put into this. Just some comments that I just like to throw out right now. It talks about a supervising OD and that supervising OD must be licensed for a minimum of 5 years. But I think that's the only requirement for the supervising OD. I would like to add in there that whoever that supervising OD is, he or she should be glaucoma certified. And does it have to be a supervising OD? Could this person work for an ophthalmologist and have that ophthalmologist count as the supervising individual? So that's one comment. 3046.C, item number 3, it talks about approval. I think from that the person receives approval from the institution where they graduated. What constitutes approval? I remember when we had the meeting with the 3 deans from the California schools, Dean Flanagan mentioned that they would not, that Cal would not necessarily sponsor somebody or approve somebody just due to the liability issue that's involved with that. So I don't know if this approval would be something that they could get. And then it mentions in D, subsection 2, that the optometrist, the temporary license is issued to somebody who is competent, and what determines competency. So those are just some of the things that I just like to have addressed as this bill proceeds.
Dr. Kawaguchi, any comments?
So I have these 2 thoughts in my head about that we need to prepare for the future and possibilities of other pandemics or continuation of the current. At the same time, that protection of the consumer and making sure that we are not putting things in place in an expedited way that would put that at risk. And, we as a board have been grappling with this specific subject from fairly early on in the pandemic. And I almost feel like this is late in coming. And I get the legislative process, but I think that we should just continue to watch things as they move forward, see where this goes. If it continues to move forward, I would like the staff to continue to monitor and update us on this bill. But I agree that that would be it. We don't take a position on it.
So you want no position or you want watch position?
I want no position right now.
Can I get a motion?
Do we need an emotion?
And you have no need to take a motion to take no action here.
Okay,
It's save a little minor save of time, right?
thank you. All right, well then on that note, I am going to move on to item number 6, which is future agenda items. Does anyone have any suggestions for future agenda items? Madam Moderator, if you could open up the comment chat for comments, please.
Yes, this is the moderator. Members of the public, I've opened up the Q&A. If you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon, type I would like to make a comment in the ask field and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, well then we are now moving on to item number 7, adjournment. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.